So Suzanne Audrey, would you like to speak to your statement? And you've got a kind of 3-minute maximum speaking time. Thank you.
3 minutes seems a luxury after Bristol's 1 minute, I would say.
Yeah.
I wanted to congratulate Mayor Helen Godwin first on her election, but she's not here. But I think it really does feel like we've got a more positive phase for the West of England Combined Authority. And I'm sure you all want to focus on the future, but the accounts and scrutiny have to look at what's happened over the past year. And there's at least one issue that requires clarification. I'm sure there's more, not least because the current chief exec and deputy chief exec were in post at the time. I've been told by the monitoring officer not to mention their names, but I suppose you know who they are. It feels rude not to mention people's names if I'm talking. Anyway, a contract awarded to Cives Consultancy Limited has cost the Combined Authority £150,000 for 9 months, July 24 to March 25. And there have been a couple of freedom of information requests made, but the responses have not given any proper explanation of the procurement process. The Information Commissioner's Office has been involved and noted delays in responding, and that they might have to get involved in the future. Previous questions. Sorry, I can see the chief execs talking. All right, thanks. Previous questions from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have also not resulted in an explanation of the procurement process. And it's really disappointing that my questions today haven't been answered properly. I asked what procurement process was followed, and then I was informed that the contract fell below the public procurement thresholds within the public contract regulations. So I've done my best to look at those. I'm assuming it's the 2015 ones, because the others haven't come into place. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't mean that there has to be no procurement regulations followed at all, and you can just do what you want. So there are questions still about, which I thought was a fairly straightforward one, what procedures were followed to make sure it was transparent, value for money, and adhered to the public sector equality duty. So I'm hoping this scrutiny committee, because I can't ask a lot of questions, I'm hoping this scrutiny committee would just ask the questions, and the chief exec and the
30 seconds, Chair.
Thank you, and deputy chief exec, who are both involved, it's clear from the FOI requests, can actually give a proper response to how it was procured. Because if not, then I think it's going to fester and negatively reflect on the new mayor's administration when we want a more positive future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, and sorry for speaking with the chief exec while you were doing that. Stephen will have a statement on that, a short statement, but I think that it's probably best that that comes after we've heard all the other statements, so that if there are other things that you want to cover at the same time, Stephen, then we can. And in terms of whether, I mean, given the nature of the relatively compressed nature of the timetable in terms of questions coming to scrutiny and then being able to respond, I think there's a limited amount that we could look at in this meeting or discuss in this meeting in an informed way. But if there needs to be a discussion at a further meeting, then I would commit to that if there does need to be a discussion of that.
So Chair, if with your permission, I just want to make a comment about some recent questions that have been raised concerning procurement. And I welcome the opportunity to really clear this up. There were last summer some former senior officers in the organisation were responsible for running a compliant process for the procurement of 2 consultants that I had asked them to bring in. The decision to bring that specialist resource in was necessary to address 2 specific organisational needs. Improvements in communications, which you've just heard from the Mayor, are now working better, but which back then were not working. And I don't think there's any debate about that. And also improvements in the overall organisation, which had been subject to a best value notice. The 2 individuals that I asked to bring in brought specific relevant track records that meant they were the right people at that right moment. Earlier this year, the new monitoring officer brought to my attention the fact that the process that former officers had followed to bring in those people was not in compliance with our own internal procurement rules. This was not a breach of public procurement law, but regulations, I should say, but it did fall short of our internal standards. When this information came to light, I instructed officers to sort it out, to regularize it, with one of the consultants who was looking to be kept on for a few months more, but the other was already scheduled to leave. So we just took the decision to regularize the one, but not the other. Work to improve our officers' understanding of the internal processes, which were in place and still are, forms part of the ongoing work on organizational improvement. So we have taken that on board and are making sure that it's put into place in terms of the communication, the processes that are there and need to be followed. Thanks, Chair.